Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. Welcome. Welcome to the webinar. We're going to wait a minute or so to let everybody in. Sashi and I are actually a block away from each other right now in downtown Denver. Sashi, did you check into Four Seasons?
Not yet, not yet. So I'll probably go in the afternoon after this webinar. Yeah.
All right. I'll see you here in a couple of hours then. Yeah, we tried to, see if we could get us into the same space, make this a more interesting experience for you all, but last minute stuff doesn't usually work great in these things, and with technical difficulties we've had in the past, best to avoid it. Um, all right, I guess everybody's here. Sachi, do you think we should dive in?
Absolutely. Let's start.
It is time. So, folks, welcome to the webinar. Today's topic is driving lean operations, well, in landscaping operations. Our speaker today is Sashi Kumar, Chief Revenue Officer, Top Green. Um, we've been partnering with Top Green for almost a year now, over a year, in fact, helping them with getting detailed maps of properties. And then, they do their magic on top of it. And Sashi will get into what that magic is in a minute. I want to get some housekeeping items out of the way. We have uh, the webinar being recorded right now, so you will get a recording of the webinar afterwards. Um, if you have your phone around you, your email around you, put that on silent. Try to turn the notifications off so that you can focus on the next 1 hour of the discussion that is going on here. This webinar is for folks who sort of know that, who have this intuition going on, have always thought about how can they make operations better, to drive quality, to drive efficiency, to drive margins, to drive better performance, to um, have more money to share with the crews, right? All of that, you've been thinking about it, but then you feel like, what's the starting point? What tool, if there was a tool that would help me drive that change, if that has been going in the back of your mind, and you've been thinking about a few different ways that you can, go down that path, this, we promise you, is going to be one of the most effective ways that you could pick to drive that change. So if you have that mindset, this webinar is for you. Sashi, welcome to the webinar.
Yeah. Thanks, Utkarsh. Thanks for getting me on here. It's interesting, how this is shaping for us. In Top Green, we've been like since last July, we've been very actively in the industry. So since 2019, I'm into landscaping world, right? So before that, I was mostly into technology space and automation space. So it's quite fascinating how outdoor works happen and how much efficiencies we can improve in the outdoor works. So, I'm just going to keep the introduction about Top Green very brief in maybe 2 lines. Top Green is all about giving you smart planning for the jobs and also giving you the visibility that is required to take informed decisions in the operation space. So Top Green is focusing on landscape maintenance, operations, and opportunities for efficiencies. That's all about Top Green. Yeah.
Very cool. Guys, when we look at landscaping operations, we are thinking about, when we are thinking about landscaping, we think about sales, how you acquire those accounts. Then there's a handover process, those accounts go from sales to production. In production, you've got two parties really. One party that is doing production, so that's where you drive lean operations, and a party that's managing client relationships. And you drive stuff like retention and good experience through communication over there. Today, our focus is going to be in going from sales to production to operations. Where are those issues that creep in, and what opportunities emerge for us as we are operating on these properties in a steady state? Now, high level objective is three things based on what we have been seeing. Everybody wants to drive margins, right? But we want to drive it like a maniac. We want to drive it like a maniac because there was a huge difference in the multiplier that the Brickman group got and the Valley Crest group got. Although both of them, merged to from Brightview, folks from Brickman actually made a ton more money than folks from Valley Crest. The difference was a business that operates at 13-14% net margin and a business that operates at 3-4% net margin. So driving that margin results in dramatically different outcomes. We want to change the status quo. So Sashi had this brilliant line, and I was like, oh man. He's like, the way people get profit from maintenance business is by selling enhancements, which is sort of the status quo. Everybody does that. Um, because the base maintenance contract is almost seen as a loss leader. It's like that toilet paper kept at the end of the Walmart space. You get through it to get to enhancements and make your margin. Um, Sashi, any comments on that?
Yeah, so absolutely. Because yeah, I'm going to speak about this over and over throughout this webinar, right? So I always say that there is a lot of margins left there in the maintenance work, and we are undoubtedly not tapping it enough, right? So why there are a lot of stories that we wanted to present during this webinar, where we can specifically get into what visibility is the quotient, right? So we all think that there is a lot of preparedness is required, and if we are well prepared and we have visibility and we have the data, then I think we get the answer there. So there is definitely a lot of margins seeping in there, which can be locked in for profits, right? So that's all I would like to add there. A lot of stories for us to tell in this webinar. Yeah.
So visibility is big, but I guess at some point you just want to challenge what you expect. If you expect your base maintenance contract is going to be something that, you're not going to be earning like 35-40% margins, not a percent more than that is sort of the expectation. That expectation could very well be off because according to Sashi, literally every property they've touched, every there is one way or the other you can drive some efficiency into it. Obviously, some property would have a lot more opportunity to drive, change and to drive margins, but then every property would have some. I mean, that just tells you how big of a change this could be in the status quo. Problem is visibility, and that's why when we expect something from our crews in terms of like, okay, here is the budgeted hours for you. Did we give them the budgeted hours right? Could we have given that? Should we have given that less? Should we have given more hours? And then when they punch in the actuals, are those actuals really actuals? So really inspecting what we expect from our crews, it's really hard to do without that visibility coming in. And that's where Sashi and the technology they've developed at Top Green, that's where it comes in. Now Sashi put together five different stories from across the country of these different properties and crews performing at these sites, these jobs. Sashi, can you walk us through these stories one by one and like what changes you guys were able to drive?
Yeah. So before getting into the details, I know there is a lot of information on the screen. So I just wanted to set few things clear there. So you see on the left-hand side, we have some Gantt charts. On the right-hand side, we have some maps, right? So, and the maps are overlaid with some spaghetti. We call it as a spaghetti dashboard. It's all the breadcrumbs of the crew on the ground, right? So we get the patterns on how is the crew creating movement in the property, how they're progressing, and so on, right? So this is like on 2nd April on the top side, left hand side, Grant, you'll see on 2nd April. If you can zoom in a little bit, Utkarsh, you see. Um,
Give me a second. I'll just make these images a little bigger. I guess they became too small to zoom in. And then we'll go into them one by one. Give me a second, just a second here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, perfect. So on 2nd April, they were in the property producing. Three men were there in the property producing, right? So they spent good amount of time, and by the time they completed the maintenance service, it was 3 in the afternoon, and they
Which
completed the
is
job and they returned to the shop. Sorry, Utkarsh, you had to.
sorry, 3 in the afternoon. Where are you reading 3 in the afternoon?
Yeah, so because it's time zone right now, the screenshots are taken in Denver, but the
Oh,
operations is happening in the east. So
okay.
it's yeah. So
I
that's
see.
basically they are returning 3 in the afternoon to their shop. So there is yellows and greens. Green is all about production. Yellows are the transits. So uh, 10 to 12 that you see yellow is a transit for lunch break. Morning, they start at 5 to 6, which is, you add 2 hours to it. And they started production, and they went for lunch and they came back, did 1 hour production, and they went back to the shop, right? So by the time they reached the shop, it was 3 p.m. So this was day one, and day two, they again returned back to the same property, did some detail work. So second day, they were again for about 6 hours in the property, including the travel. It was around 9 hours in the property for that particular job. They came to the same property, did the detailed job, and returned back to the consecutive sites, consecutive jobs, right? So this tells us a lot of things. So because the operations was run on tickets, detail works are separate, ticket scheduled, and the crews are just honoring it. So there is no enough good planning. So if our client already knew that this can be pulled in 2 hours on the same day, then the schedule can be made in such a way that it's done the same day, right? So there's again a significant opportunity. Repeat visit can be avoided. A lot of travel time can be saved. What could have been done on the same day, right? So this is again, this all falls back to the visibility story that we were talking about, right? So if we have the data, we know exactly how much time the crew is going to take to complete this job, and what or how much time is left, and how much time it's going to take for doing the zone wise detail works, then it is not necessary to really come back to the same property to do this job, right? So we see an opportunity here. This is one of the stories that I wanted to share. This second one is interesting. Again, this is a large multi-complex sports facility where there is 6 men allocated because of its size, and there's a lot of turf there to manage. So a lot of maintenance going on. Again, our client assigned 6 men. It's a day-long job expected, but the crew were based on their field app feedbacks and the tickets closeouts. They were completing and well within the budgets. They were hitting around 37 hours to complete this job. So everything was good till we saw the data with our safety vest. So how we are capturing this, just to give a prerequisite, if people doesn't know how we capture this data, we have like a wearable technology. We have a safety vest with some sensors on it. So the crews are donning those vests, those smart vests. So maybe yeah. So I have a small image of this of the safety vest there. So typically they don that vest. So that's all they have to do. There is no interactions or check-in check-outs or pressing the buttons on the app and stuff like that. So when they wear it, that's what they have to do in the day, and the data is automatically captured. Here we have 6 men, so it is very again. So there are some colors. Yellow is transit; they're getting into the property, and green is production, and the purple color that you see is the idling time or the waiting time. So essentially, they're covering the job well within the budget, but rest of the time they are basically um, honoring the estimates, right? So that's what I would say.
They were just hanging around here, like five of them were just, and
Yeah.
then
So the purple is picked up based on their speed on the ground. So if it's purple means there is zero speed on the ground,
Hmm.
right? So definitely it tells a story that there is a lot of zero motion on the ground, right? So there is definitely a lot of this production was not happening. So when we identified this, so you have immediately a Gantt chart below, which is on the next week, follow on week. We gave a feedback. We thought we can improve the overall budgets for this property, and suddenly the production improved. So they only took, if you see the production time, the site time on the site was 22 hours. The production time was 20 hours, right? So there is a hell a lot of difference in the to what they have initially budgeted to what's actually happening on the site, right? So again, this is totally impossible to learn this without having this kind of visibility on the site. So any jobs that we already think that the margins can be improved, or we see the crew needs to be trained, or we see that there is struggles on renewals of those properties, right? So we already know, obviously, most of our clients, if we ask them to handpick properties that they're going trouble with, they can easily identify them. That's our experience, right? So they already know where to focus on, and exactly we have challenges, and this kind of challenges seeping in, right? So that's one of the powerful stories that we had on idle time. And the next one is
You want to talk
yeah,
because
just
I want to go through one more story and then I want to keep moving. I think we'll come back to these stories. Um, uh, which one do you want to do? The one with the hurricane blower, or one with the HOA?
yeah, yeah, this we can do. Yeah.
All right.
Um, y- okay, so this one is quite interesting. Again, it's like a four-man job. It's a large HOA. The customers, sorry, the client given the crew a whole day, a four-man crew the whole day, and they definitely deliver it good. So they do good production. The purple in the between is the lunch break. Again, time offsets from east to from where we are today. So it's very good. So it's healthy production. There is no lot of waste of time there, and the crew is doing their job to the expectations. But when we captured, in reality, the actual production, so they're spending 35 hours, the actual production time is 28 hours. There is a little bit improvement that we can do there, the actual production time. And also we realized that they're spending around 16 hours on backpack blowers, right? So that's something that was alarming for the production team to learn. This was again, from here they decided to change the equipment type to hurricane blowers, so which could significantly reduce to say up to 10 hours of production can be reduced. So that's something that they learned and they improved on this group, right? Again, I just wanted to emphasize the power of this data, right? So once you know what kind of equipments they're using, how much they are spending on each service, once they get all these feedbacks, they can make informed decisions. They know they get the actual service budgets, or actual production. I'll not say budgets anymore. It's actual production time on the site for every service. So once this information is available, and also understand what kind of equipments the crews are using, then they can make more informed decisions. If some training has to be provided, definitely training can be implemented from here, or they can really look into the inventory and improve the equipments.
All right, one more, guys. Sorry, one more story. I think there is some benefit to this because one of the concepts that we go through here, Sashi, I think it's important to cover the concept of Gantt balance. Um, so probably best to do that here because we've been talking about crew intel, but not the planning piece. Let's touch one here.
Yeah, absolutely. So what this is telling us is we need to be very serious about job planning, right? So it is very, very, I cannot emphasize much about this. So before getting into jobs, it is production team's responsibility to hand off job planning to the crew, because again, crew are well trained. They've been doing jobs for several years. And now we provide them budgets. We do site walks with the crew and explain them what they have to do, what services they have to provide, and we show the areas of interest for their clients, and so on, right? So there is a lot of things happening. But the missing piece is handing off a job plan to the crews. So we see that's a biggest gap in the operation side. So why job plans are important? Because it's like a simulator. So we call that as a sandboxing environment, where before getting into production, you can sit on your luxury of your desktop and really optimize your jobs, right? So you can like plug in how, if this job is done with a 6-man crew, how this job can be done, right? So how we can allocate the task to 6 different
What
people. What
what are the things they can change? They can obviously change the number of people. So when they are running this simulation,
Yeah.
they can change the number of people going out to the site. What else? What are the other variables available?
Yeah, so they can also allocate services and tasks to individuals, and then they can identify the equipments needed for the crew on the site, right? So say for example, the previous case I was talking about hurricane blowers to backpack blowers. That particular HOA had a lot of walkways, and double driveways for every house and stuff like that. So they know that, they already know that. And if they could have estimated that it was 16 hours from the plan, then that mistake have not been done, right? So they might have assigned a more smarter equipment much before hand, right? So basically, this tool is a sandboxing environment where you can plug and play equipments, plug and play size of the crew, change the production rates, right? So knowing that the property has slopes, has a lot of houses around, you cannot hit the standard production rates, right? So changing, so all these are variabilities that you can plug and play and see how it is affecting, right? And the important thing is balancing the act, right? So if somebody is finishing early, and now if they're waiting for rest of the guys to complete, then it's a waste of time, right? So these Gantt right away tell us that everyone is finishing the time, finishing the jobs at the same time. Nobody is literally waiting for another. Say on the right hand side, we had the crew two is finishing early compared to the rest of the folks, right? So it's very clear there is inefficiency right away before getting even to the job, right? So I know on the top we have some metrics like each crew member is going to stay there for 3 hours 41 minutes, and a total of 22 hours, and the production ratio is 92. So that 92% is all about how much you are spending time on production versus non-production, right? So there is an 8% wastage already we are determining from this Gantt, which is very clear. So that's why we say job planning is a piece which really is going to help you to improve your efficiencies right away from your luxury of sitting on a desktop and reviewing these properties.
So the balance, lack of balance is literally the first source of wastage. Equipment selection is another. And based on the number of crews you have on that property, and so that's what you end up actually discovering here. It's a 92% production ratio if you have a six person crew, but a 97% production ratio if you have a 4% crew. It's like more efficient to send less people to that job because there will be less waiting around. Now, of course, how it plays out in the field is going to be different, but just given the nature of the operation, what's required on the property and the kind number of people you are sending, just because of that, there's going to be certain imbalance that you can control upfront.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So that's the whole point. And this is in full control of us. So nobody to blame. Right. So
Yeah.
because if we hand off, if we have this clarity, and if we know service wise budgets, how much each service is going to take and how these crews are going to orchestrate this job. And if we provide this plan, which we call the blueprint, this can be done for every season because every season is going to demand new services, right? So that's why I say our budgets are, the biggest victim of um,
Law of averages.
law of averages, right? So we average. So we just say it's 2 hours job, 3 hours job. We throw the number from our hip, but we don't know the effect of it, right? So maybe we have seen 50 to 60% of the time the crews are beating the budgets. So what does
Hmm.
it tell us? That we are not estimate. We can definitely improve our production estimates. So
Hmm.
that's something that which we can do with just job planning. right? So if we have a clear plan in place and if we can reduce the inefficiencies, obviously there is a lot of opportunities.
Some great stories here, but let's get back to the flow of our discussion. So here we were going through all the stories, and the pertinent question to ask would be, where did these inefficiencies come from? We trust our guys to do the right thing. We expect our managers to give them the right plan. We expect our budgeted hours to be on spot. Yet inefficiencies creep in. You're seeing absurd numbers like 23%, 58%, 33%, 16%, bloody 67%. These are improvements on that base maintenance contract that we are talking about. So um, all of this is happening, and obviously, at some point when you sold that job and you started working on that job, and when you were working on that job, in that process, somewhere that inefficiency would have crept in. I mean, Sashi, correct me if I'm wrong. Let me go through this in a minute, and I'll ask for your comments on it. Um, you are prospecting, estimating, closing that sales, and then you get into the handover part of it. So when you hand over the job, estimated hours are sort of converted into budgeted hours, maybe without comparing alternative approaches to servicing the property, equipment mix, crew combination. Because I think one thing that ends up happening is, if there is a crew going out and this property is like close to that route, you just slot it in. If that truck has so much equipment, or so many crews going out, once it's slotted in, it's slotted in. Like,
Yeah, so I loved when we were having discussions yesterday. I think I loved the word, I love the word that you coined, landscape laziness, right? So, so basically, what's happening? We got this new property, we got this contract. We know this crew has available time slot in the route, and I know this job can be done with three men or four men, right? So we just plug it to the route, right? So that's what happens. We know the availability from our schedules. We know from our route schedules that we have. We know which crew can take this and this where this property falls in the route, and so we make decisions. So I would not say it's like 100% informed decision, but yes, we are making decisions. But what we are missing is all those points that I said earlier, where you need like a clear plan to understand whether three men is suffice or four men is suffice. Maybe you're giving a lot of budgets, which is available to you to them. It doesn't mean that you're making use of the resources. So maximizing resources is all falling under lean principles. If we don't maximize our resources, if we are just plugging in the opportunity to the available slot, that's not the way. So yeah, I would definitely say it's landscape laziness, right? So I agree to that point. Yeah.
even the lack of tools, man. I think historically we found personally, when talking about property measurements, estimates, and so on, the lazy way or the comfortable way of doing it was the status quo and the standard operating procedure, because the data wasn't there. And when the data is there, I think that that transition, there is the opportunity to make that transition. Of course, has to be top down. That we are changing the way we do business, and I guess that's where leadership comes in.
Yes, yeah, you're right. We didn't had the scale of deploying this job plans because job plans are not new to the industry. Job scripting and job planning is not new to the industry. But you're absolutely right. So if I have to really do a job plan or a scripting for all the 3,000 properties in my portfolio, it's going to be a joke, right? So it's not so easy for someone to really pick a map and draw flow maps or Gantt charts and stuff like that. Yes, that's where we see a lot of the mundane tasks can be taken away from the by the technology. Obviously, human intelligence is required to make informed decisions, but it could stand like a sandbox. You're right. Maybe we didn't have the tools. Probably we are getting there.
And so if now, when there are tools and yet action is not taken, then
That's a shame. Yeah.
that's where the, I would say, the excuses and the laziness would come in. So there's a handover piece, and then there's a ramp up and kickoff. Um, when the first 90 days of the job, everyone is trying to figure out how to operate more efficiently. Um, and if they're not, then that's opportunity lost, because then the crews are going to get stuck in their ways of, like, this is how we operate the job. So that those first 90 days are very critical to drive a better way of doing it. If that doesn't happen, then red flags emerge later on when you get to steady state. Maybe you're losing money, maybe you're losing on quality. Um, and then, if it doesn't get fixed at that point, then it's like kicking can down the road. It gets to the point of renewal. If even at that point it's not happening, when I say it's not happening, I mean like a hard look is not being taken at the way operations are being run, and opportunities are not being found to do it more efficiently, then giving
Yeah.
a price increase would just be catastrophic.
Yeah, so as I think you previously said, all the properties have opportunities for us to improve, right? So that's what data is showing us. Again, everything is operated by human, no machines involved. So it's not like a 3D printing machine sitting there and printing this, servicing these jobs. There are humans involved. Obviously, a lot of opportunities to improve, which we all know. And what we need is a feedback system where we have a feed.
Uh, Guys, can you hear me? I suppose yes. Something's happened to Sashi's internet, it seems. Um, hmm. All right. Let me give him a call real quick, see what's going on. Oh, he's back. Sashi, you back?
I'm back. Yeah, I'm
All right.
sorry.
You were talking about feedback, like a way to give feedback.
Yeah, so basically, we need to have a way to get feedback to improve on our properties, right? So obviously, we're not 3D printing there. Humans are involved. There's no machines involved. So we need to have feedback and we need visibility. So it's not just clock in, clock out. We know we give happy budgets, crew are happy and stuff like that. So there is a lot of margins leaking there. We need visibility, feedback, and it's not only the efficiencies on crew performance and stuff like that. The quality also matters a lot, right? So how much of the job is done, how much of the job is not done, and what are there could be good reasons of not doing stuff, but how do we keep things transparent to our clients, right? So I think because there is a lot of discomfort or discussions happen with the client on the quality of job and stuff like that. So we need like a total grip. Without feedbacks, without having a data point for us, renewals, now improving the margins, training the crews, all are going to become really difficult, right? So which is what this slide is essentially talking about. Now we need to have that preparedness, and we should have systems in place to capture that feedback for improving our renewals, for improving our margins and so on.
100%. So really, what ends up happening is you get like these three or four opportunities to introduce a change in the process. All these four red boxes is where you got an opportunity to introduce change in the process at the point of handover, at the point of kickoff and ramp up. When you're operating on a property that's in steady state and you know it's a problem property, it's a margin thing or a quality thing that's causing problems, and then at the point of renewal. So those are the opportunities for us. Let's go through them one by one. The first one obviously is when you win that job, and for the first time the production package is being created for the crew, and you're putting items in there. So talk to me about what are the items that go into that package, and how long does it take to create that package?
Yeah, so it's like once we have the measurement takeoffs from SiteRecon, so this is the steps that we follow. We have a tool where we upload all these features. So we're doing turf management, we're doing edging service, hard edging, soft edging, we're doing cleanup blowing, we do mulch maintenance, we do hedging, and there could be like multiple service. So first, all the service layers, we need to have measurements, we should have takeoffs. Then we plug into our system. So on the system, it's like the crew, we call it crew planner. Crew planner is a sandboxing environment. Sandboxing environment where you can plug in, you can decide, okay, now I got a 3-man crew available for this property or a 4-man crew available. So let's go with our age-old principles, right? So we plug in that 4-man there, and we know their truck has all these equipments, right? That they have 252 inches, 2 push behinds, and probably 3 backpack blowers and 3 trimmers or 2 trimmers or whatever. So your inventory in the truck, and we plug in there. And now we work on service-wise budgets. So service-wise budgets, we should then how do we evaluate that? By knowing the production rates. So we know typically with a 52-inch, our industry standard is this, or my company standard is this. You can plug in your own production factors there, which you don't have to know exactly what you're going through as of now. You can use industry standards, or you can come, it's again falling under the average piece, which will come back again. But you can plug in that number. Now you have service wise budgets. You're going to take 2 hours for mowing, 3 hours for edging, 4 hours for cleanup blowing, whatever it is, you will know that time. Now you will leave the tool to come up with an optimal plan. So when we say optimal plan, so we need to zone the property. We need to have focus areas for the individual crew members. We need to assign the tasks for the individual crew members. Then we need to orchestrate the whole job, ensuring that there is a Gantt balance, meaning they're all finishing at the same time. Nobody is waiting for anyone to come. So all this heavy lifting, you can leave it to the tool. So once you plug in this data, the tool will come up with an optimal flow or path of motion, we call, for the crews to take in the property so that they're making less movement, right? So there is literally they're taking less steps and efficiently moving in the property, and they clearly know what services they need to provide, and they clearly know what equipments they need to use, and they know when to start and where to start, right? So that information is there. And here is the thing, right? So you can change things now. If you know it's a large stuff, why I should use a 52-inch? Can I see how the overall equation changes with a 60-inch, right? So I can change from a 52-inch deck to 60-inch and see the impact right away on the tool, where I can quickly start thinking optimizing. It's not necessary that since your truck has 252s, you have to stick with it, right? You can optimize that. You can optimize it. So, or if you think that there are a lot of inefficiencies, the tool is showing me, can I reduce it to 3 men and see, right? So you can right away see the opportunity. It becomes a sandboxing tool for you to optimize so that you maximize the resources, whether it is labor, whether it's equipment, you maximize the resources.
These these
Yeah,
updates are happening instantly. Like I'm making changes to the cruise and I'm changing to right there. Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and again, it's all based on your standard production rates, right?
Mhm.
So we are not even getting into the actual production rates. So you can right away get easily 20 to 30% opportunity, margin opportunity we are talking about, by just using this tool and preparing ourselves much before the job.
Hmm. Got it. So typically, let's say it's a 20-acre property. Someone is sitting on it's an HOA. Let's just say 20-acre HOA. Someone is sitting on this tool and he's trying to create a simulation out of it and trying to get to like the optimal way of doing it. How much time should he schedule for it? Like this, just doing this task.
It's hardly 5 minutes, Utkarsh, because what we need is the takeoffs. So once we have the takeoffs, plug in, and the computer is going to tell you, keep the variabilities. It's like it's a small hand tool. You say 3 men, 4 men, or increase, reduce the crew. It's like how much time it's going to ask you for changing that inventory list. Then you can right away see that. So we have like a pre-planned window where we can show without the path of motion and dead walking time. We can tell you like immediately on the screens. Immediately, it's a feedback telling you that this much time it's going to take for you. And once you press the planning button, maybe depending on the size, it's a 4-acre property. Probably in 5 minutes, you'll get a completed plan with proper path of motion details there, right? So like optimal
So
path and stuff like that.
this is what comes out, what we are
E-
seeing on screen right now.
Exactly.
Okay. And so you just change the combinations, you try out a few different things, and you just
Yeah. Yeah, and you have KPIs on top of the screen where you say how much efficiency you're hitting. So
Yeah.
that's your market, right? So if you
Yeah.
know it's already you're losing 8% there, how do I maximize? Then you can think about and improve it because you come from production background.
Got you. Tell us about what kind of stories you've heard as far as pushback is concerned. Does the crew give any pushback? Like, how does that work out?
Yeah, that's always the case, right? Because right now they're operating in a fashion, and this is asking for a change, right?
Yeah.
So I'm say if it's assigned to a four-man crew and the four-man crew is on a route and this property is on a route, if this planner is going to say that no, you can do a better job with the three-man crew, and how much time it takes for the operations team to move that from a four-man route to three-man route, right?
Hmm.
And how much time it takes for the crew to accept this plan, right? So it could be demanding from them, right? So because you're suddenly giving them zones because they, say for example, we have instances where the guys were operating in that property for 7 years, right?
Hmm.
And you suddenly give them a plan and say that no, whatever you did for 7 years was good. Now with use this plan, it's going to be great, right? So obviously you're asking for a change, right? So how the crew is going to take it? So we have challenges around it. So it's not like a smooth switch there. That's what we need to work. If we have to make margins, if we have to improve the efficiencies, that's what we need to work. It all demands a lot of cultural change in the company, accept changes and adoption there, and work through it. How do we incentivize people to improve the efficiency? So these are the thoughts which should fall in place once these changes come to hard hit on your head, right? So how do I make a decision? Obviously you need champions, acceptance from the team, and usage, right? So yeah.
Makes sense. Um, all right. We're almost at the 45-minute mark. Um, Want to quickly go through this, which is the second scenario. So obviously you do that planning and simulation when you win a new job. You can do it when you are in steady state at working on a job, and you know it's a problem property. The way you would identify it's a problem property, maybe you got margin issues, maybe you got quality complaints. Maybe you know a crew that's out there that needs training. Maybe you think about it in a route by route fashion. If there's a quality problem on a property, maybe the same route would have multiple properties with that problem. But once you've identified that property, you would create a plan, do a simulation, figure out maximum resource utilization, and then go challenge the crew. Go challenge the crew, give them a plan, get their buy-in on executing it. If you don't get that buy-in, maybe you say, okay, let's see which one is a more effective way of doing it, and track outcomes. When you have the vest out there, obviously you can track it more effectively because you're getting field data in real time. And really, what's being tracked is production time, where you're actually servicing the job, incidental time, wrap time, moving equipment around, and then wastage, which is just like standing around and doing nothing, no motion, which you were just talking about when you were looking at Gantt imbalance. So that ends up being the workflow um, on these jobs. Sashi, any comments here?
Yeah, spot on, right? So I think the outcome, measuring the outcome is very important, right? If we don't measure the outcome, it's very difficult to feedback the crew. So you can give them great plans, and if the plans are plans, if it's not effective, if the crew thinks that no, this is not possible at all, how you're going to challenge them, right? So how you know that there is opportunity there? So we have to measure the outcomes. So that there comes our safety vest, which is helping to it's much more 100 times beyond what data that we have today. So what we know is we know they're spending time on the gas stations, they're spending time in the property, we have GPS on the trucks and stuff like that. That is only giving us visibility. That's more of understanding the route motion, right, and crews moving across the properties and stuff like that. But they are closing service tickets, but how effective is that is the question that we have. So crew intel is a variable tag. Again, there is no manual interventions. Data is coming in service by service. We know how much time they're spending on each equipment type, like 60-inch mowers, 52-inch mowers, edge trimmers and stuff like that. So then we are getting into metrics like production time. Production time is telling us how much time they spent in this property on mowing, edging, blowing, mulching, whatever it is. So we are getting into the nitty-gritties and details. And incidental time is that the one that easily we know is the travel time, but there are a lot of other incidental time that we have. We have offloading, we have breaks, right? So those things we cannot avoid them, right? So they are essential. But we need to have a measure of it. If we don't measure how much incidental time goes in a job, you are definitely invisible there, right? So you cannot make informed decisions. And wastages or the top. So wastages is unnecessary movement in the property, right? So why do you have to, if you don't have a plan, the crews might travel back to the truck often, taking new equipments, and a lot of movements created, and also idling, right? So I have completed my job. I'm waiting for my colleagues to complete, right? So these are all the things that we cannot question. But if we do have a plan and we tell them this is how you have to move and this is how you have to complete the job and this is the balanced approach, then all these wastages can be. So until you measure it, you're not going to take action, right? So I think these screenshots are just to show you what I'm talking about. On the left side thing, it's like a 3D printing, right? So there is less crossovers. Mode is doing its job, the details like blowing and stuff like that. So maybe I don't have a legend there, but we do have legends. You can crystal clear see there is no overlaps, people not crossing over, individual colors or individual person handling different equipments, right? So there is a clear job done, there is no overlaps. Whereas if you go on to the right side, you see that the more was there, good pattern created with a lot of short turns. I don't think most companies want such short turns of the crew to make a more pattern. And you see on the road like how much transitions have happened, how much motion they have created, right? So
Mm.
is that this much motion is required really, right? So is that something that we need to fix? How much time we are wasting on those motion, right? How do you make these calls? How do you get to these details if you don't have the data, right? So how do you train your crew? If you show this to your crew and tell them that this is what we need to improve, and why do we think that there'll be a problem, right? So we are not tracking people here. So we are working on our margins, we are working on our efficiencies, we are working on our business. It's more about improving our job, right? So the devil is hiding in the details there, right?
Mm.
So I think that's where we need to really make things, collect the data that is necessary, measure really what matters, and work on training and understand from there. So yeah.
I mean, one fascinating thing that I'm just noticing here is like this has been measured using aerial imagery remotely. Like I guess that's tough, and like people in the field are just like exactly at the edge, touching it at the edge, exactly at the edge, and it's like, oh my God, like this is not, how is it like matching so tightly is, well, that's very fascinating to me. But yeah, I mean, to your point, like um there are if you train them, then see the kind of outcomes you can get. And this is an actual company, this is an actual company doing it. And obviously they have that culture, that's why they're able to drive it. It's just like, oh, this is how we operate, and if you are working here, that's our expectation. um All right, let's keep rolling. Obviously, when you get to renewal, maybe you don't want to get into like all the way down into all the detailed metrics. Maybe create a plan and then you see, how it fits with the estimate that you had sent out. What kind of price increase you need to give, and you do that for all the properties that you are about to give a renewal out for. Um, Now, talking about estimating and production together ends up being confusing. It has been historically also a reason why companies have not been able to come up with good production rates. Because when you think about production rates, you think about production. But when you are doing estimating, you are thinking about sales. And the point of sales is not to think about, how quickly you can do these little polygons around the property, these little sections around the property. The point of sales is to maximize how much can I sell this job for. That's the point. And so the production rates that you use during sales process are general. are based on market benchmarks. Now imagine you are in a market where you have the most efficient crew because you've got a great team training them to operate very effectively, but everybody else in the market is, you know, not with that expertise. So everybody else is going to say, okay, it's going to take me 10 hours to do the job, and I'm going to put like a 50% margin on it or a 40% margin on it and sell this for like 18 hours and, multiply with the crew rates and so on. Now, just because you can do that job for in 7 hours, would you sell that for 14 or 13? Would you do that? No, that would be just dumb. That would be leaving money on the table because everyone else is selling it for 18. So you would go ahead and sell it for 17.5 or 17, and you would take the job and then you will do it for 7. But then what your market does as an average should inform the production rate that you use during estimates, not the production rate that you actually have with your crew, assuming it's better than everyone else in the market. And there you basically get your profit. So, good estimating maximizes how much I can sell it for. Good job planning guarantees crews run on the basis of hours truly required, maximizing efficiency. And then doing both maximizes the probability of making a profit.
Absolutely.
Um, I mean, it's something that Sashi and I had to resolve between each other also, honestly, because you were like, oh, we are just throwing out ours. You are throwing out ours. I'm throwing out ours. What's the difference between them? And this really is the difference between them.
Yeah, yeah. So I always say estimates are estimates, right? So when you're bidding, obviously, we need to lock in the profits there, and we need to have that hours, right? So it doesn't mean it exactly translates to production. So that's where I was emphasizing on the handoffs. So the handoffs should take care of the margins, which normally we do. It's not that we don't do. It's more than that. How do we get that extra 5% margin or extra 10% margin? That um, uh, should be the KPI for the production team, right? And if they achieve that extra margins by bringing these processes in place, they should be incentivized. They should be recognized for sure, right? So there should be clear motivation on why the production team have to do this and how they have to coach the crews. And I know we should definitely work. There is obvious opportunities for us to improve the production. And it's nothing to do with the estimates. Estimates are estimates. We are beating the competition. We're in the market. We know how much typically these properties go. So there's nothing to do with giving those budgets and putting a percentage to it to the production, right? So and always this handoffs has differences of opinion. They said, hey, you have underbid, you're putting a lot of load on us, you want us to complete fast. So those all those discussions can be eliminated. So we are now talking with data, right? We have a plan in place. We have a clear orchestration for the crew. We exactly know this is what it's going to take. Let's challenge on this. If you cannot do, we will know. We get a feedback. We can measure that. We can see what can be improved.
So, high level outcomes. Of course, we want to control service delivery outcomes, so we want to drive quality. We want to make sure like every area in the property is covered, nothing is being left out. We want to make sure like these tickets that are like, let's say, monthly tickets are being closed really. So how do you do that? You track your guys, you make sure that that's really happening. So she was telling me about the story where tickets were not being closed.
Yeah.
Really, in reality, like they were not being closed, but the branch manager thought they were being closed, and the crew was just telling the branch manager, yeah, yeah, we are taking care of that retention pond there, but they were not. Um, and so, that's one resource utilization we've talked about. I think a great point you made was revenue opportunity for us here is like on the same route. If you end up saving like 20% time, you've got enough space to slot in another property in that route. So for the same costs that you're paying, directs and overheads on that route, you do end up adding an additional property. So that's more margin, net margin. Um, we've gone through a couple of these points. Uh, and really, I think ultimately where the rubber meets the road is culture. Um, how the way we do business, this planning and this monitoring. and driving accountability in the field uh, becomes a way of just business.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, performance, efficiency, quality, you need to measure all these things, and even revenue per hour. I know most of the companies do it. We do have a process. I'm not saying like we are starting from zero. We do have a process. We have a ticketing system. We have clock in, clock outs. We have GPS systems and so on. But there is a lot of scope for us to improve our measurements on, right? So that's what we're all talking about. We just don't create a system which has a lot of loopholes. We sensitize things, have sensors in place, get feedback. So data is our asset, right? So going forward, we want things to get automated, reduce the overheads on top of there, and improve our quality, improve our performances, improve our efficiencies, improve our margins, improve the revenue, right? So operations is our bread and butter, right? In this industry, that's our product that we sell to our clients, right? So we have our crew getting onto the job, giving them a clean job is our bread and butter. And if we don't put a lot of lens on it, we'll be ending up with obvious challenges. There is no doubt in it. Yeah, so okay, like we are moving towards autonomous mowers. So we're moving towards technology. We have labor crunch, and all those things are coming on our way. So these problems are not going to go away. Right? How do I decide where I have to put autonomous mowers, whether I'll get the ROI by investing on autonomous mowers? So these could be your future problems, right? So all these data sets today is very much important. Where we have like real story where our customers are using autonomous mowers, but they are still, with our data, they were able to articulate how much of operational time can be reduced. And now they're introducing additional property in the route because they've introduced autonomous mowers, right? With more data backed, right? So that visibility is required to make informed decisions, where it is reality, right? So it's no more like a concept, like yeah, technology is coming. It's not. It's already here, right? People are started using it. They are seeing the value in adoption, and they need that visibility and automation in place.
Um, so, folks, wanted to ask you a question quickly. Would you be interested in talking more about this one-on-one with Sashi and his team? Just launched a poll for it. Um, and in the meantime, the floor is open to questions. Um, please drop your questions in the chat here, and we'll take them up one by one. Um, so back to this flowchart, Sashi. This gives us points of insertion of a best practice in the process. Which ones have you seen companies typically take up? Where do you see them start?
I think people get more curious about their actual production data because that's more, physical in nature, right? So still they're very skeptical about job plans and stuff like that. When we hit them, if they come from a good operational background, they know value of time studies and having value of job planning. Probably they've used job planning before and they are struggling to scale. If they're already introduced to all these concepts and they've been practicing it, yes, they will start from job planning, right? So, uh, and 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 typically what we have seen is they will start with the properties they're struggling with, right? So they're struggling with meeting the budgets, or there is a lot of feedbacks from their clients on the quality performance, or they know they there is some challenges with the crews and they need to work on them. So they will sense it. It's not that our clients, they don't know about this situation. So they
Oh, yeah.
definitely
You can
know
tell.
about this situation. And where they start is from these problem properties or problem that they're going through right now. And we have seen, both the cases where they start from job planning, which is the right way, right? So have a job plan, challenge your crew, and understand, measure, and then improve there. But most of the guys are also interested in starting from crew intel. They want to have the vest on the crew and see what they're doing today, and then work on having a plan and to train them, right? So, okay, now we get the plan out with the actual production rates. Now give them the plan and train them, right? So, yeah, that's how things are moving at this point of time.
Got you. Um, so one last point to cover, I guess, before we step away. The implementation hurdles that come, um, obviously change. This could be a big change. I think when I spoke to you about it a few months back, a big takeaway for me was because this is not happening as a practice. And this is a conversation when you're doing it with the crew. There's a lot of back and forth. You will have to challenge them. You will have to get them to think from a new angle. So there's an uphill battle there. And so the most effective way to actually have success with an implementation like this seems to be to pick a production manager who is good with his crews, who has a good relationship with his crews, who's able to have that conversation. And when this tool ends up in his hands, you train him, and then he trains the other guys on, his guys on driving change, and that gives you like a model, like a model of what you can expect from other production managers and other crews. Is should that be how, if I'm thinking about implementing this, is that how I should think about it?
Um, yeah, definitely. You're right, but I would be a little bit hard on it, right? So my point is we should come away. We should definitely work on our culture on how we approach the cruise, right? So end of the day, if you make a plan or if you are going to measure their production, you are going to work with crew. Without crew's blessings here, things might not happen, fall in place, right? So, but we need to change that culture. So, without we measure and without we show them what's going wrong, without being rational about it with data, right? It is very difficult to change things out, right? So we need to understand the opportunity, get the data, understand the opportunity, and explain this to the crew. We should not be hesitant to show this data to the crew, and we should remove the perception of tracking here, right? So there is no tracking happening. We are measuring what really matters for us at this point of time, because end of the day, it's our business, right? So we have to make revenue out of it, and there is a complete change culture. And again, the crews are on hourly rates, right? So if they do this or they do the extended work that you're going to give them, they are paid the same. But that is also not helping them to think what you think, right? So if we are increasing the revenue in the route, if we're going to increase the overall productivity, then why not incentivize them, right? So there is a big change in culture in recognizing the crew who is performing and who is not, and incentivizing them and training them, showing them the data, and talking with them is the key change, right? So we need to bring that change management, or I would say cultural change, where most of the companies do. It's not that I'm not saying that companies don't give incentives, they don't give bonuses. I know companies who are giving ESOPs to the crews also, right?
What?
Right? Yeah, yeah. So I heard it. So definitely,
Yeah,
def definitely there is a lot of opportunity on improving that with more measurable data and giving a good feedback to improve things there. Yeah.
very cool, very cool. Um, any any other parting thoughts that you would like to share with everyone here?
Yeah. I think we're all there. We're accessible here. So we are here to see how we can get these tools to your hands. So we are so excited to bring these tools to your hands, and it's all about operations and improving efficiencies. Yeah, so I think we are excited, and I believe equally you guys are excited to bring this to scale and implement. So there are a lot of companies showing interest here. They're working with us closely, and I would recommend be that early adopter of technology. There is no skepticism, try and fail, right? So if we don't try, if we don't see what we need to see, then I think there'll be a lot of blind spots for us, which will be very difficult for us to correct later.
All of us have got to make more money, right? Make more margins. And this is what it all boils down to. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Some of the points that you were talking about were meant to be a little vitriolic, were meant to be a little offensive, but the idea was to get the message across. Um, All of us want best for the industry. And this is how we, bring that change one crew at a time.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
guys. Have a nice day.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.